Mack10 wasn't just a key player in the music scene. He also had a reputation for being a straight-up terror, making a lot of rappers scared of him. Many rappers who didn't know better made the mistake of crossing him, and none of them liked the result. Common was one rapper that tried, and it took Fat Joe stepping in to save his from getting beat up by Mack10.
You know, that brother kind of saved my life.
Fat Joe?
Fat Joe saved my life.
What do you mean?
Mack10 and them was like, man, what you looking at, homie? And he was like, man, I'm from Chicago. We look in the eye. And then, man, from that point, I know Mack10, homie, went and got they thing.
Even Ice Cube, who was his friend, wasn't spared. When Cube's brother-in-law tried him, Mack10 allegedly didn't hesitate to put hands on him, even with the risk of cutting ties with Cube.
Ice Cube's brother-in-law got beat up.
There was conflict, yeah, you know, but I went to Cube about 4 or 5 times before the conflict jumped off.
Okay.
And told him to correct the situation.
Let's dive in. Mack10 being seen as a terror in the industry wasn't really surprising when you look at where he came from. He grew up in a part of Inglewood called Queen Street, an area known for being the home turf of the Queen Street Bloods. Just by being from that neighborhood, Mack was already tied to the gang lifestyle, whether he wanted it or not.
And where exactly in Inglewood did you grow up?
I grew up on Queen.
Queen Street.
Yeah.
Same place as Bosco.
Yeah. I grew up on Queen. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you to a certain degree, you involve, you know, even if you ain't trying to be involved.
And with the drug trade booming during that time, things got even more intense. The streets were hot, violence was everywhere, and rival gangs were constantly going at it. LA County during that era was one of the most dangerous places in the country, and Mack10 was right there in the middle of it as a kid, watching it all unfold.
I mean, you're talking about the 80s. That's when crack first started hitting LA.
Right.
And you were right there at the epicenter of it all.
Right.
But just like a lot of kids growing up in rough neighborhoods, Mack10 had dreams beyond the streets. Early on, he wanted to make something of himself. At one point, he even had hopes of playing sports and making it to the NFL.
At one time, I probably thought, you know, I was probably gonna play in the NFL or something, you know what I'm saying? But you know, the ball don't bounce like that all the time. And then,
right.
That dream didn't quite work out though. And as he got older, his focus started to shift. By the time he hit middle school, he was getting pulled in a different direction, toward music. Hip-hop especially grabbed his attention. Plus, a lot of people in his neighborhood were already involved in rap, so he had that influence around him 24/7.
So at what point did you start thinking about rapping?
Probably like junior high. I had homies in the neighborhood that influenced me, you know, when it came to it, because they was doing it, you know what I'm saying?
Mack10 started taking music seriously and looking up to legends like N.W.A, who were holding it down for gangsta rap and telling the kind of stories he could relate to. He started crafting his own style and eventually joined a local rap group called First Amendment. That was his first real platform, somewhere he could express himself and sharpen his skills. It gave him a taste of what this rap thing could really be.
I was a pretty good writer, and like in the hood, my music was growing.
Okay.
Like I was in a group called First Amendment, you know what I'm saying? And like
First Amendment, okay.
Yeah, and like my music was growing.
As his name started buzzing in the local scene, Mack10 ended up connecting with some heavy hitters in the industry. One of the first major doors that opened for him was through Eazy-E, a founding member of N.W.A. Eazy saw something in Mack and even had him write a few records. That cosign gave Mack a big confidence boost and started plugging him into the right circles.
What point you met Eazy-E?
I met Eazy before I met Cube. I actually wrote a couple of records for him, you know, stuff like that.
Through those connections, he eventually linked up with DJs like Bobcat and DJ Pooh, major names who were already well respected in the game. Those relationships eventually led him to members of the Lynch Mob, Ice Cube's crew. Before long, Mack10 found himself in the same studio as Cube, and the two hit it off musically. They started recording together and built a real rapport.
The West Side connects with me in South Central when a drag from the zigzag came buff with.
Their relationship grew even stronger when Mack10 went on tour with the Lynch Mob. Being on the road with Cube gave him even more exposure, and he continued contributing to Lynch Mob tracks. In 1995, he got a major look when he landed a spot on the Friday movie soundtrack, which was huge at the time. Cube was instrumental in helping Mack secure a deal with Priority Records, officially launching him as a solo artist and setting him up for a strong run in the industry.
Mack10, nutty as they come, leave them face down, and none from the waist down.
But while Cube's support gave Mack10 a major boost in the rap game, it also pulled him into a bunch of industry beefs, starting with the beef with Common. On September 27, 1994, a young Common Sense dropped a track that would go on to make hip-hop history and stir up some serious drama. The song, I Used to Love Her, was a standout single from his second album, Resurrection. It was a lyrical masterpiece, using the metaphor of a girl Common had fallen for to represent his love for hip-hop. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that this girl is hip-hop itself. The track was a hit, especially with the picky East Coast rap crowd, who hadn't been all that impressed with Common's first album, Can I Borrow a Dollar?
About popping Glocks, serving rocks and hitting switches. Now she's a gangster rolling with gangster.
But while the East Coast crowd was vibing with Common's storytelling, not everyone was feeling the love. The song paints a picture of hip-hop's evolution, from its pure beginnings to its transformation into a more commercialized and gangsta-influenced style. It was a reflection on how hip-hop had changed, but that didn't sit well with Ice Cube. To him, it sounded like a jab at the West Coast dominance of the genre during the 90s.
Created I Used to Love It in 1994. You know, it was a story that I could tell about the evolution of hip-hop and the stages that I seen hip-hop go from just the pure innocence.
He talking about this girl that he was in love with. You know, she's supposed to be hip-hop, and he's so in love with her. But when she go out here, she get up.
Things came to a head when Common heard through the grapevine that Ice Cube had responded.
And King T from the West Coast. And somebody said, yo, Cube, this you on this song. So we playing the song, and I'm listening. I'm like, damn, this dissing me. And King T was like, nah, he ain't dissing you. I'm like, this dissing me.
The verse King T was talking about was Ice Cube's contribution to Mack10's track West Side Slaughterhouse, featuring Cube and W.C. Common decided to fire back with a diss track. And that's how the B&U was born. Common came out swinging with lines like, went from Gangsta to Islam to the D of Das FX, calling out Cube for pandering to the East Coast only to turn against it later.
Who's higher learning? Don't take my words out of text. Went from gangster to Islam to the Das effects.
He dug even deeper with, hypocrite, I'm filling out your death certificate, slinging bean pies and St. Ides in the same sentence, accusing Cube of being at odds with the values of the Nation of Islam while promoting street life.
Hypocrite, I'm filling out your death certificate, slinging bean pies and St. Ides in the same sentence.
And to end it all, Common delivered the ultimate mic drop by using Ice Cube's own lyrics against him.
Any last words before I hit the switch from the immortal words of one?
For Ice Cube, this was unfamiliar territory. He had long been known as one of the most ruthless diss track artists in the game. His scathing takedown of N.W.A. with No Vaseline was already legendary, and his reputation as someone you didn't mess with was solidified. As Doug Infinite put it, if you're going to come at Cube lyrically, you better come with it, or he's going to body you. So I think Com felt that way, being the lyricist that he is. Ice Cube later admitted that he had written a response track to fire back at Common, but fate intervened before it could escalate.
I had a record, man, that was a killer. And then we ended up having this summit with Farrakhan.
The deaths of Tupac Shakur in 1996 and the Notorious Big in 1997 had cast a dark shadow over the hip-hop world. On April 3rd, 1997, less than a month after Biggie's tragic death, Farrakhan organized a peace summit at the Nation of Islam's headquarters in Chicago. It was a historic gathering, bringing together some of the most prominent figures in hip-hop, and of course, Common and Ice Cube. But even though Ice Cube and Common officially reconciled their beef during the peace summit organized by Minister Farrakhan, the same couldn't be said for everyone in their respective camps. Old grudges and unresolved tensions still lingered. This became glaringly evident about a year later when Common and Mack10 found themselves on the same set, filming a Sprite commercial with Fat Joe, Goody Mob, and CeeLo Green.
So we out here chilling, man, just celebrating, you know, glad to be finished the album, the movie, and everything. We got a little free time, so me and all the Hoop-Bangers decided to get on the plane.
The concept of the commercial was based on Voltron, with each rapper representing a different region of the United States. What should have been a straightforward shoot quickly turned into a tense situation. One of my guys still wasn't over the whole Cube situation. Common later admitted he still had bad blood from what went down. When this unnamed member of Common's crew crossed paths with Mack10 on set, he made his feelings known, loud and clear. According to Common, his guy locked eyes with Mack10 in an aggressive stare-down, making the tension impossible to ignore. Mack10, never one to back down from a challenge, confronted him.
We go to the commercial, and he started like basically staring down Mack10, you know, like just giving him a grilling him. Mack10 and them was like, man, what you looking at, homie? And he was like, man, I'm from Chicago. We look niggas. And then, man, from that point, I know Mack10, homie, went and got they thing.
Doug Infinite, who was close to Common and part of his inner circle, confirmed the story later. It wasn't subtle, Doug said. Mack10 didn't take kindly to it. He told him, "You'll lose here." It was his way of saying, maybe in Chicago, you can get away with that, but out here in LA, it's different. What started as verbal jabs quickly escalated. Mack10's bodyguard stepped in, trying to defuse things, but Common's guy upped the ante, mockingly calling Mack Whack 10. That only made things worse. Things hit a boiling point when Mack10, clearly frustrated, sent one of his crew members out to his car to grab a weapon. At that moment, the situation could have spiraled into something far worse, but Fat Joe stepped in like a true mediator.
My guy did a little more too after that, like just, just agitating the situation. So I'm like, Fat Joe said, Ross, man, yo, your man gotta go. He gotta leave.
Fat Joe's influence calmed things down temporarily, but the damage was done. Common's crew member was promptly kicked off the set of the commercial. However, that wasn't the end of it. Furious about being removed, the guy went outside and reportedly damaged Mack10's car. According to Common, word soon got back to him that Mack10's camp was planning serious retaliation, not just for his friend, but for him as well. Fat Joe once again stepped in, using his influence to de-escalate the situation, but unfortunately, Common's friend wasn't as lucky. He was roughed up as a warning.
He left, but my man came back and busted some windows.
This dude is wildin'.
So then I'm like, oh, bro, like, why you do that? So then they like, Ross, we gonna have to get your man. They roughed him up a little, but it wasn't nothing, it wasn't nothing too bad.
Next up is Cypress Hill. The drama started with the Friday movie soundtrack, which Ice Cube curated. One of the standout tracks on the album was Roll It Up, Light It Up, Smoke It Up, a Cypress Hill song. The group had agreed to contribute that track, but according to Be Real, a member of Cypress Hill, the real problem began when Ice Cube heard another song during their studio session. While listening to tracks for the movie, Ice Cube got a sneak peek of Cypress Hill's upcoming album, Temples of Boom. They played him Throw Your Set in the Air, their lead single. Cube loved the song and wanted it for the Friday soundtrack instead. Cypress Hill politely declined since it was the title track for their upcoming project. Cube pressed a bit, even asking them to play it again. They did, but they stood firm that the track was off limits. Fast forward to the release of the Friday soundtrack, which came out shortly before Temples of Boom. A friend of Be Real's heard one of the songs on the soundtrack and immediately called him saying, "Did you let Ice Cube use one of your album tracks for Friday?" Confused, Be Real explained that they had only given Cube Roll It Up, Light It Up, Smoke It Up. But the friend wasn't talking about that track. He was referring to something that sounded suspiciously like Throw Your Set in the Air. Skeptical at first, Be Real listened to Cube's track, and his heart sank. The hook sounded eerily similar to their song, with only minor tweaks to the lyrics.
The Get High song, yeah, we gave that up already. Why? No. The Throw Your Set in the Air thing. I said, no, we didn't give him that. He goes, well, that is in his chorus in his song. Finally, I hear it, and sure enough, there it is, the same. It's like some of the words are changed around, but for the most part, the chorus is the same.
Feeling betrayed, Be Real aired his frustrations in the studio, and word quickly got back to Ice Cube through Mack10. Cube, trying to address the situation, called Be Real to hash things out. He claimed it was all a misunderstanding and the matter died down. Then, Ice Cube later invited Be Real to the studio to record a guest vocal for Caution, a group signed to Lynch Mob Records. During the session, Be Real heard a few lines from a song that sounded almost identical to lyrics from Temples of Boom. He couldn't believe it. Was Cube trying to lift from them again? Be Real noticed that Cube seemed to pick up on his reaction because when he stepped out of the room and came back, the lines had been removed. To Be Real, this was proof that Cube had been caught red-handed once more.
And I heard a couple lines that were the same things I used on the Temple of Boom record. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, that's my line. In my opinion, I felt like he saw my reaction, and I walked out of the room for a second to make a phone call. When I came back, the line was gone.
This was the tipping point for Cypress Hill. Be Real went back to his crew, told them what happened, and they decided it was time to take action. The group released No Rest for the Wicked, a scathing diss track aimed squarely at Ice Cube. When Cypress Hill dropped No Rest for the Wicked, Ice Cube didn't take it lying down. Known for his sharp pen and fearless approach to beefs, Cube decided to retaliate, and he didn't hold back. This time, though, he brought Mack10 into the equation, and the two went straight for Cypress Hill with their diss track King of the Hill. Mack10, still early in his career, didn't hesitate for a second to jump into the fight, even though he had never met anyone from Cypress Hill personally. Loyalty was everything to Mack, and Ice Cube was his guy.
I had never met Be Real, Muggs, Sin Dog, nobody from Cypress Hill. And they was blood. But I was with this, so I didn't give a.
It didn't matter to Mack that Cypress Hill members were fellow bloods. His allegiance to Cube came first. The beef between Ice Cube and Cypress Hill grew deeper as both fans and artists began taking sides. Tensions in the Los Angeles rap scene were already high, and this feud only added fuel to the fire. Around the same time, Ice Cube was dealing with another issue involving LA artists Cam and Solo, who were caught up in a business feud with him. Things came to a head when Cube and Solo crossed paths at a Los Angeles traffic light. According to Solo, the encounter quickly turned physical. He claimed to have gotten the better of Ice Cube during the fight, and in the scuffle, Cube's chain somehow ended up in Solo's possession.
Knocked him down, knocked him out, woke him back up, whooped on his. Somehow his chain fell in my hand. I don't know how I got in my hand, but it fell in my hand.
Not one to let a moment like that go unnoticed, Solo made his way to a Cypress Hill show at the House of Blues, where he held the chain up for the crowd to see. The audience went wild, and the moment was even captured in a photo that circulated widely at the time. With tensions running high between Cube, Mack10, and Cypress Hill, people began worrying that the beef could escalate beyond music. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed and the beef never spiraled into real-world violence. As the situation calmed down, Mack10 found himself playing an unexpected role in resolving the conflict. According to Mack, someone gave him Be Real's number and told him that Be Real wanted to talk. Mack agreed to the call, and the two had an honest conversation. Mack explained that his loyalty to Ice Cube meant he had to ride with him during the feud, even if it meant going against fellow bloods. Be Real, to his credit, said he understood and wasn't mad at Mack for sticking to his principles.
Said Be Real wanna holler at you.
He asked me, so what's it gonna take for you and Cube to squash this? I said, just like you, all he's gotta do is call me.
And I explained to him where I was coming from. I don't got nothing to do with it, but that's my homeboy, and I'm riding with him. He said, you know what, homie? I can respect that. I can't even be mad at you.
That phone call proved to be the turning point. Mack10 managed to convince Ice Cube to get on the phone with Be Real, and the two finally talked things out. The beef was officially squashed, putting an end to one of the more intense rivalries of the era. But just as one feud ended, another began. This time between Mack10 and Ice Cube themselves. Their falling out would eventually lead to the end of West Side Connection and the two not speaking to each other for decades. According to Mack, the tension started over an incident involving Ice Cube's brother-in-law. In a now-deleted 2010 interview with All Hip Hop and a 2020 sit-down with DJ Vlad, Mack explained his side of the story. He claimed that Cube's brother-in-law had been disrespectful toward him, and he tried to address the issue diplomatically. Mack said he approached Cube about the situation 4 or 5 times, asking him to intervene and resolve it before things got out of hand. "I wasn't trying to start anything," Mack said during the Vlad interview. "If you go to somebody 5 times before it escalates, that shows you were trying to be diplomatic about it. Nobody wanted things to go to that level."
It was conflict, yeah, but I went to Cube about 4 or 5 times before the conflict jumped off.
Okay.
And told him to correct the situation. If you go to somebody 5 times before it escalates, then you was trying to be diplomatic about the situation.
Despite Mack's attempts to handle things peacefully, the conflict eventually boiled over, and it led to Cube's brother-in-law reportedly getting beat up. This incident was the breaking point for Mack and Cube's relationship. In interviews over the years, Mack10 has made it clear he doesn't believe the fallout between him and Ice Cube should have been enough to dismantle West Side Connection. During a quanda with All Hip Hop, Mack reflected on the situation, explaining that, in his eyes, the issue wasn't serious enough to sever their professional relationship. "Basically, I didn't do anything to him, and he didn't do anything to me," Mack explained. "We had an argument, and I guess it was taken the wrong way because his wife was present. If she wasn't there, we'd probably still be doing records." Mack went on to share more details about what caused the tension. The root of the problem, according to Mack, was Cube's brother-in-law, who Mack described as disrespectful. Mack claimed he brought the issue to Ice Cube 3 or 4 times before things escalated. It was brought to Cube multiple times before the bullish happened. I don't know what kind of dude he is now, but back then, he was disrespectful, Mack said. Despite how things turned out, Mack has been open about the regret he feels over the fallout. In a 2011 interview with Vibe, Mack admitted he wasn't sure if he and Cube would ever speak again. It's a sentiment he's echoed in later interviews, though he's also expressed that he doesn't hold any grudges. Interestingly, there's also been speculation that Mack was upset with Cube for refusing to go on a second tour to promote Westside Connection's final studio album, Terrorist Threats. While neither Mack nor Cube has ever publicly addressed this rumor, it's one of many theories about what might have contributed to their falling out. For his part, Ice Cube has largely stayed tight-lipped about the details of the breakup. When asked about it in interviews, Cube has alluded to a violation that he felt couldn't be overlooked.
It's just a violation that can't be overlooked.
During an interview on It Is What It Is, hosted by Cameron, Cube was asked about his relationship with Mack, particularly why he only performs with WC and not Mack10. Cube didn't shy away from the question, but he kept his response measured. "Nah, we don't get down like that," Cube said. "It's just me and W." When pressed further, Cube added, "Yeah, it's a problem. It's a thing where it's just a violation that can't be overlooked."
It's a problem with Mack?
Yeah, it's a problem.
Meanwhile, Mack10 has also been clear about where he stands. In a 2023 interview with Bootleg Kev, Mack addressed their falling out, reiterating that he doesn't harbor ill will, but isn't actively looking to patch things up either. For fans of Westside Connection, the ongoing estrangement between Mack10 and Ice Cube is a bittersweet reality. Their chemistry on tracks like Bow Down and Gangsta's Make the World Go Round showcased a unique dynamic that can't be replicated. But as both artists have made clear, the wounds from their falling out may be too deep to heal, leaving their once iconic partnership as little more than a chapter in hip-hop history.